And what's happening? You check on YouTube if you're live? Because I'm not getting that.
No, it's not live yet.
Still nothing? Hey, Anushree.
No.
Hi, thanks for joining.
Hi, Samrat,
Uh,
everybody.
okay. So maybe we'll try one more time.
Hi there.
Very interesting. Hey, Mon, thanks for joining.
Hi.
This is the worst kind of anxiety I have started having, which is my live stream is not going to work because now I'm seeing an old episode from July popping up each time I try to go online.
No.
Okay, and Jack, good job on that. You've already mentioned to people that we're going live. I just don't know what to do because I've said it here, and yeah, that's what happens when you're using two different software from two different companies. Why is why is Google not buying Zoom already?
I see the show. It says September 4,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
seems
There are 15 people, 14, 15 people waiting, and
it's just that your video is not on.
yeah, just the video is not going up. So each time I try to go live from Zoom, it's just not starting up.
No. Mm.
Okay, let's see. Excellent. So now it's gone back to Sean Shaw. Duplicate string key, select a key below to go live. You have to switch to baseline. Oops.
I sent you the link. Maybe if you click on this link,
Okay, let me try one more time. I just changed the streaming key.
yeah, I
If
put
there
it
was
on.
something which happened in the previous show, it may have a ripple effect here.
Yeah, I put the link, public link on chat. So perhaps that's another way of getting to the right one.
Hmm. Takes me back again. to the July show. What could possibly then I go to stream. Okay, now I have said that, but this one stop right here. I've now set up a new streaming key. Should work this time. Okay, and this is not giving me any options here to edit the streaming key. How do I go? And old stream is showing up for some reason. Yeah, again, same thing. Is Jack, can you check? Jack, can you check with John if he's available? He's the master of all this.
Yeah, I can check. Yes,
Okay. So in the meanwhile, we'll get started. We'll start talking because this is a recorded session. So what I'll do is I'll publish it later on. That's no problem. Even if we are not able to go like now. Although there are 15 people waiting there. A couple of them can be us, but still.
The only other thing I can suggest is that you start your own, you use your own account to do a stream and just post the link in the chat for the current baseline YouTube. And so they hop onto yours. I mean, assuming that it's the baseline account.
I don't think my creator mode is enabled on my account. I don't know if I can go live using my thing. Anyway, so what I'll do is I'll publish this one later on.
And we're still using Zoom for the India baseline. We're not using the new format that we used for the US baseline this week.
Yeah, it's only for this week.
I just wonder if it's the same account, if it's still configured for that new one and just is not accepting Zoom.
Interesting. Maybe that.
Might be.
Anyway, I'll just let this go to hell and we can get started. Maybe what do we need? We need to just post Jack, can you please do me a favor?
Yeah, I will
Can
post it.
Yeah, just post this post on our YouTube chat that we are having some technical difficulties and we'll be posting the video an hour later.
Mhm.
Yeah. So whatever
Yeah.
meeting we have today, we'll just cut out this initial part and we'll post the rest. Okay, good to go then. We'll now start as if nothing happened. Okay, I stopped live streaming here again. Cool. So are we good then? There we go. Mohan, are you coming on video? Any chance? Because that's what happens. John has been telling me it's only you and Mark who are visible on the video. Oh yeah, thanks, Mark. Um, so hi, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for making it one more time. And we have new guests, Stephen and Jack. Thanks once again. We do this baseline office hours in India every Saturday at 6 p.m. My name is Samrat Kishor, and I'm part of the technical steering committee at Baseline Protocol and head of community in India. Really great to have regular guests, Mark, Mohan, Anushri. You picking up, increasing attendance. Thank you so much for making it. And we have team of the creators of Baseledger protocol. Today's show is going to be all about Baseledger. Let's talk to Stephen and Jack from Unipride about what's coming in Baseledger. That's one of the major announcement which happened in the baseline world this week, and I'm sure for the entire of September we're going to be hearing more updates and how does it feel to put out the test net and seeing people actually starting to use it?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me or for having us here, Unibright, at the Indian Baseline show. Very great, very honored to be here. Yeah, basically for me, it feels like the last, let's say, 12 months also felt, because when we are building, of course, we are building our stuff every day, and the baseline community also meets like not only on the official office hours, but also like on a daily basis between maintainers, between developers, between companies that are interested in using the baseline approach. So for me, this is just another milestone in, let's say, bringing the baseline approach to adoption. But of course, it's a huge step having the testnet ready and launched in the last days. And I think it's not only about September when we will, for us to add updates and to bring new news around it. Of course, it will be the major part for not only for us at Unibright, but also for our friends from Provide, and of course for all those that engage in the community and that are part, for example, of the ETH Atlanta meeting in October. So yeah. For baseline, I think it's important just for the idea we had with Baseledger to close the gap a little bit between, let's say, the desires or the wishes that companies have when they want to use blockchain, and on the other hand, a very good approach and standard like Baseline, and of course Ethereum behind it. And Baseledger for us is that missing link, closing the gap with all the technical difficulties, regulatory things, cost matters. So we want to close the gap between the companies for actually using Baseline, and Baseledger is the one of the tools to do that.
Yeah, it makes me absolutely proud of witnessing this launch, especially harboring the whole idea of baselining, and we've been talking a lot since the past over a year now that things need to be done, and this is the way it should be done, and how older projects which could not take off for some reason now have a chance because there's baselining, because there is things like layer 2 protocols, based net. Without further ado, let's also look at testnet. Do you want to walk people through on this video how they can get involved, how they can actually start using or building using Baseledger?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, perhaps to give some context and also to set expectations right. If we are in the field of baseline, we are always trying to bring two lines together here, and one is the definition of a protocol or a standard, which includes a complete open source community. And the other world is companies that are building products around this newly evolved standard. So for me, it is always important to make clear that I'm so to say I'm part of the baseline community and part of the TSC, but I'm also talking for Unibright, which has commercial offerings like Provide has or EY or every other company, and it's an open world, so it should not be like it's not called the Unibright show, it's called the Baseline show, and that's for a reason. So of course, everything I bring into this community is mainly driven by things that our clients tell us and how they want to use blockchain or how they want to use Baseline. And in that spirit, we built the testnet because we want to test things out to make sure that Baseledger as a layer 2 or Baseline as a complete idea gets production ready. So for people to understand, the Baseledger testnet approaches developer that want to build the baseline pattern on a layer 2, and it also is towards customer clients that want to have an easy test net, for example, for the SAP, when they build a test case with other companies also using a big ERP system and storing baseline proofs on Baseledger. So for both paths, we have something prepared. The easiest way would be for the developers, of course, to check out GitHub, not only from the baseline side, but also from the Baseledger side. So it's github.com Baseledger, of course. And then diving through the READMEs and also making the connection to the baseline repos. In terms of developer engagement, there will happen a lot also on ETH Atlanta, which will also hold an extended hackathon to bring exactly these worlds closer together. And for all the companies that are interested in how Baseledger actually works, we already have a testnet up and running, which is called Lakewood. So lakewood.baseledger.net shows the current Explorer. And I don't know if somebody of you could share the screen and just visit that website. I can also try, but I'm on mobile, so perhaps my screen is a little bit too small. I can try, or somebody else shares and I comment. I don't mind. I'll try. Just a second.
Let me take a shot. I have 10,000 other things open here, but
Can you see my screen?
yeah,
Yes.
doesn't look like a mobile screen.
All right. So yeah, it's very small for me now, but I try to find my way. So currently the block explorer that we show on Lakewood is built out of 8 validating nodes, so a very small net still, because one of the reasons we built that is to experiment with, let's call it, some extreme settings of the validator set. So we want to see how does the net behave if we take 5 out of 8 validators offline and bring them back like 2 minutes later because the service went down. Or we have an unequal distribution of validation power towards a minority of the validators. And to test all this properly, and especially in the beginning, it's easier to do this on a test net with 8 validators and not like with 2 or 3 figure numbers of validators. So this is all to give the companies a sense and an understanding how the net behaves, because it's a layer 2 to Ethereum, which is very well distributed and decentralized. And the reason to build something that exits into Ethereum is because of speed and costs, of course. So there's always a mitigation between how big is the actual network, meaning how many validators we have, and how secure and decentralized it still is. So this is the first idea. And what you also can see is I mean, currently we have a lot of regularly blocks that get posted into the net, but you also see blocks with transactions, which you can see on the right side. And this is something where you can actually explain how Baseline works in terms of that you cannot tell from the transactions that are stored on the blockchain who is doing business with whom. So we see transaction types here. We see creators, which are obfuscated from the signers who actually sign it. We have 2 different IDs that are unique for every single transaction, like UIDs, and that can be linked to, for example, the object in your SAP system without telling the world what kind of object this actually is. And then you have the payload, which is the encrypted information, let's say, as part of a workflow of 2 business participants. And this is completely encrypted and can only be encrypted from the participants of that process. I make a small example. So if you are one part of my supply chain and I want to order something from you and I send you a purchase order, I will do this off-chain and I will not use the blockchain to store the actual purchase order. I will send it you on a secure private channel, for example, using technology like nets. And then I will store some information of this purchase order, for example, the root of a Merkle tree, which consists out of the data of the last work step. I will encrypt that and store it in the payload. And I will tell you as my counterpart this transaction ID, so you can find it in the blockchain. I'll send you off-chain the purchase order. You can do the same calculation as I did and then compare the 2 payloads with each other. And if they're exactly the same, then you can send me a feedback, a positive feedback, and we go on in the process.
Yeah.
And for this, sorry?
No, I was just saying, to oversimplify this, I think it will be as easy as sending out an email and starting to do business, which is that.
Yes, exactly. So we don't want to change. We, meaning Baseline and Baseledger, we don't want to change the way that business is made. We don't want to tell a company with like a multi-billion revenue a year that they should switch off all their systems and start using something fancy new. So they will still be using their SAP to exchange purchase orders on whatever channels they used before. And the only thing that we add is like the proof level, the trust level on a decentralized, distributed storage. And this is what Baseledger does. And then just think of Baseledger like if you have a workflow that consists of thousands of purchase orders with different versions, and then every 1,000 purchase orders, you bundle them up and store those bundles that were stored in Baseledger into Ethereum. So you always have like a small delay where you are working on Baseledger, and then if things get settled because the process gets to the next step, for example, you use Ethereum as the next, let's call it trust level. And that's what we want to show with Lakewood. So of course, the missing link here would be how would an SAP user store his transaction into Lakewood. And this will be part of the things that we want to show in September and on ETH Atlanta to present, for example, a small package that SAP test systems could include on their own system, and then have a button on their purchase order, store this transaction in Baseledger, and then it could be found here in Lakewood.
Sounds awesome. No, congratulations, Stefan. I think I couldn't be more excited of experiencing Baseledger myself. And just conscious of time, you had expressed that you wanted to leave a little early because you had another engagement. I just got a regret from the other team, Jack and Kyle. They're driving somewhere and they're on the way. So yeah, anybody has any questions, any comments on what Stefan just walked us through?
Hey, this is Mohan. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure.
Steven? Yeah. Do you have a development network as well, so that people who want to build a a sample application can essentially develop it on a cluster, and before you even kind of test it. I mean, I suppose development and test protocol. How does Lakewood kind of figure into that?
Yeah, I think the perspective from Lakewood is more um, like the user who does not want to see any of the implementation of the blockchain implementation below. I mean, that's always the thing we have to mitigate. We want to show how it's developed. It's open source, and you can use the Peachy testnet if you are a developer and really want to go through every single line of code. But in the end, if we want to make this a success and if we want to drive adoption, we have to find all those business customers that are using ERP systems and tell them that they don't have to change anything. So the idea of Lakewood is more, it's a preparation to show a distributed net, but what we want to show with it is the plugins into SAP that you can use it and you find it on the blockchain and do not care about how it is written into the blockchain, so to say. And if you are more like on the security team of your company, who is responsible for the proper integration of the ERP system into other systems, then you would most probably have a look into the GitHub, how the actual nodes are built and how a transaction gets encrypted and how it's decrypted and how the workgroup concept in baseline works and all these things. So we are doing two things at the same time, providing all the detail on how it's built, and on the other hand, hiding the details from those that just want to use it. This is the things we try to do with those two testnets.
Can you provide the link to that sort of the high-level dev resources for this? Perhaps you can share that so that people who want to get both perspectives or who want to get either or perspective can do so.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the perfect entry point is, I stopped sharing my screen, but it's on Baseledger.net, of course, and then you have on the main menu, you have the testnet subpage, and from there you can directly link to the Baseledger GitHub and docs, and everything I just said, like how these two testnets are meant to be understood. Exactly this, I could have read it from the docs. So as I was part of writing them, I can do it the way I did. But you will find all the information in GitHub and the docs as well. And in terms of, for example, a plugin for SAP to be tested on Lakewood, as I said, this is part of the things that we want to show in September and over the hackathon on ETH Atlanta.
The second question I have is, I guess it's actually a two-part question. How is this kind of complementing Provide Stack? I mean, does it depend on Provide Stack? Is it interoperating with Provide Stack in some way?
Yeah. So again, two roles I have here. From the baseline perspective and from the standard perspective, Baseledger does not change a thing because it's defined in the standard how systems of record should interact with each other using an off-chain messaging protocol, using zero knowledge proofs that are anchored into a public blockchain. So in terms of this, there's no new complexity introduced. The only thing we did, so to say, is exchange Ethereum as the final blockchain by Baseledger being an intermediate blockchain that exits into Ethereum at certain points. From the perspective of Unibright and Provide, for all those that are using the tech stack, of course it is integrated in the Provide stack. You can think of Provide like a software as a service offering with different blocks, for example, for identity management or for storing keys involved or for doing zero knowledge calculations and proofs in privacy. And there's just another package which is called like Baseledger integration. So for the users of Provide, it would be the easy switch to configure their stack in a way that it writes the proofs into Baseledger. The Provide stack, I should mention this explicitly, although Kyle would be the better one to explain. The Provide stack also got open sourced with the announcement of the Baseledger testnet. So it's not a closed game. It's not something where we develop something and say we will not show this to anybody. The opposite is the case, although it's competition on the commercial side, we think on that very early stages of a new standard and protocol, it's the best if we open source everything and invite everybody to improve on the standard side as well. And this is also true for Provide.
So, the last part is I guess the discussion you had earlier where you talked about, sending a sort of a purchase order through a workflow, sort of as part of a workflow, and then you're sending it just as a message, like an email, as Samrat is saying. And so what if I get the purchase order in terms of a hash signature, a link into the Baseledger, then all I do is basically verify. Like I suppose if I click through it, it has a verify thing that says okay, it's verified, right? I mean, it's basically like you're sending a message, you're sending a payload as part of the message, and the payload has a behavior or an action that it can take, which is a verification of on the blockchain. Or on the,
so I think
Baseledger.
you are right, and I think this is the easiest use case, and for me personally, from my experience with clients, it's the most probable use case for the months to come. Baseline was not introduced with this very easy use case in mind, where just two parties exchange something like they exchange today, and they have an additional level of trust with Baseline that both can rely on. But my personal opinion is that in the beginning, exactly this will be the case that's used most often. Of course, we can go way further in terms of that, for example, a workflow consisting of different work steps not only exchanges documents, but exits into something that holds a value, like an invoice, and then the invoice is not paid on a classical channel, but perhaps with creating a token that can then be sold to other providers who finance these invoices. So there's endless possibilities in terms of how DeFi builds on Baseline. Personally, perhaps it's also because the field where we come from here in Germany, and also the work we did before we founded Unibright was mainly in the supply chain here in Germany. And here it's all about, I send you something, you act, and you send, you start the supply chain, and then we have discussions afterwards, what was ordered and what was delivered, and if these two don't match, then we have a problem. And something like Baseline or in the Baseledger implementation can already help on that case, and perhaps solve like 80% of the ongoing discussions in a supply chain, because both parties agreed to a certain state of truth and anchored this agreement in a public blockchain which cannot be altered afterwards. So I think this will be a very vital case in the beginning.
So with
Go ahead.
this particular sort of example, just with this example that you just kind of talked about, so what I ordered and what you delivered, right? So I'm customizing a car, and it's a custom car, and you're ready to deliver a car. You send me the bill of material, essentially the I guess the bill of associated with this car that's ready to ship, and that one basically is. But the verification would be obviously that what you ordered, all the configurations that you ordered, all the people that needed to get that done, basically that those things are done. And I guess the Block Explorer would be able to, I could drill down to make sure that all of the different compliance points were met. So for example, if you're dealing with if you're dealing with a sort of a customization of a vehicle, like, you give it to a third party that is kind of customizing this car to have special wheels, maybe they're changing it from gasoline to hydrogen or whatever it is, very custom kind of stuff, which people used to do on, say, for example, Humvees. So when you're doing that, then you can actually explore that all of the things were done and who did it, what the compliance certificates issued. Can I do all of that from through the Merkle tree?
Of course, but always having in mind that none of this information will ever end up in the blockchain. So you will definitely not use the Block Explorer for this one. You will use the Block Explorer to ensure that if your counterparty agreed to something and stored this agreement encrypted on a blockchain, then you can use the block explorer to verify that it really ended up in the blockchain and that he's not just telling you that he wrote it in there. But what you described for me is already like a multi-level workflow consisting of hundreds or even thousands of work steps in between, because it's you just described like one of the most complex business case scenarios already. So if we break it down to a very simple, I sent you a document and you agree this document is correct, and we both continue to work on this state of truth with the next document. And if this document is just like, this is the delivery address, and then you say, okay, accepted, I got the delivery address, then at least you cannot tell me afterwards you send it to another address, because we both agreed on that one. But the information on the delivery address will only live in your system and in my system. And the only thing that ends up in the blockchain is the agreement that we both agreed that this address that was exchanged off chain is the right one.
Yeah.
So there's not a so there's not a way to explore, not on the blockchain, but again through private identifiers or set of identifiers, that what was done. I mean, outside, in the sort of the private workflow outside of the blockchain.
No, the idea is that we both verify this in our system, and we store it only in our systems where we control the firewall and who has access and who not. But if we want to prove to somebody else, so now we can come to the third parties, that we agreed on that one, then we can, let's say, rerun the calculation on that document and both see, okay, the result of that calculation, for example, the root of a Merkle tree was stored in the blockchain, so nobody can say, oh, I didn't know, because it's in the blockchain. But we should not. I mean, it's a very Unibright-ish way to see it, because I know that Baseline, of course, has way more in mind with exiting into DeFi, and especially the third parties involved. I mean, what we are discussing here is just classical business between two parties and using a blockchain as a truth or trust layer. But with zero knowledge proofs, you could also include third parties like regulators or somebody who wants to see that the business we are doing is Baseline compliant without having to show him the actual purchase order with enclosing all our details about, I don't know, discounts or price building or so. That's where the actual idea from Baseline came from, to have that third parties. I tell you something and I can prove to you that I know the truth, but I will not show you what the truth is. So, yeah. But this for me still, this is level 2, because we have so much work to do and so many potential clients that would be happy with level 1 already, that the Unibright Stefan focuses on that a little bit, and the Baseline Stefan is very excited about all the additional opportunities to come.
Awesome. No, I was just chiming in with 2 questions, Stefan, and people who are watching this on YouTube at a later time from now. Please do subscribe to the channel. We keep posting updates like this one very frequently. The second thing is, do visit Stefan's other video where he's explaining Baseline. I think that's a pretty good primer on Baseline, where Stefan has taken us through everything. Stefan, what was it, like 10 minutes?
Yeah, and there's also very much team effort. I mean, only because I am talking to the camera does not mean that I'm the one explaining it. For example, we had that demo day in December of last year, where we had these explanatory videos, and especially what I described now with that supply chain relationship is explained there also in detail. So there is a lot of educational material out there. My personal opinion is that the best educational material will be if a productive client like Kona, for example, uses Baseline and Baseledger and then tells the world how the processes got improved, because then the others will start to listen, and not necessarily if developers explain how great their development are, because every developer does this. So we need some real world proof that it's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, and that's why, I was sort of coming in with 2 questions which are more businessy in nature. One, can we can we sort of address the elephant in the room, that what is it different? What is different in this new layer 2 protocol, in this new protocol that we are talking about, and we've dedicated today's show to that one protocol? What is different? Blockchain has been into existence. People have spent millions of dollars committed in VC funding on blockchain projects. What is this bringing in, which was not there in the world till now?
This is a question for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the beauty about Baseline is that it really does less than what's possible. I mean, it's really bringing blockchain to be an additional trust layer and not being a world computer. I think when a new technology arises, first you have something where you get more and more excited and try to rebuild more of the existing world with that new technology. And then there's some point, I think we had this point in, I don't know, perhaps 2018 or 2019, where you recognized, okay, perhaps the old technology isn't that bad at all. So we don't have to rebuild everything on blockchain, but what could we use blockchain for that the existing technology does not bring? And Baseline for me is the perfect sum up of this, because it only stores a very reduced types of data, but this, if it's done right, this ensures everything that you have with a decentralized distributed ledger, because it ensures that trust and that not one party can decide on its own to delete something or to change something afterwards. And Baseledger even goes further, because it reduces what blockchains are able to do only to storing baseline proofs. And that's why it can be very lightweight, it can be very cheap, it can be very fast, it can be very reliable. And then frequently it exits into Ethereum to use that bigger state of decentralization.
Cool. And I'm going to ask you one more question, which sort of leads from your previous response, which is on variable costs. So we've picked up the topic of variable costs on this show in the past. So what do you have to tell people who are watching us today? And we're going all gung ho about Baseledger, and everybody knows about UBT, the variable price, etc. So how do we give comfort to corporates? Because I think that has been the biggest challenge, and why Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is still a gang of big boys, and the smaller ones are really not even exploring coming there, because everybody feels that we'll be number one, will be required to hold a cryptocurrency. Number two, there'll be absolutely variable costs which nobody can predict. So how do we answer that question?
Yeah, so I think, for example, Baseledger is part of that answer, because we also experienced that with Unibright, that it's a different thing to explain a technology or to explain like an ecosystem behind it that consists of cryptocurrencies which are connected with expectations and money and everything that comes with money. So for all those companies that were excited about the possibilities of the technology, they were perhaps a little bit hesitant because of the downsides of not being able to calculate the prices of a transaction for next year. And if you think about integration projects, most of them are long time projects. So you don't set up a automated integration for 1 month. It's more like for 5 or 10 years, and then suddenly technology changes and all the guys who set it up are not in the company anymore. So it's really good to have something in between that uses the technology, but also gives some stability on the price. And with Unibright and UBT, we already tried that with our products, like the framework, where we said there's only a part in UBT, and then it can be monthly renewed with a fiat price, because this is still business standard. We cannot change the world too fast. And with Baseledger, it goes even one step further, because you can estimate the transaction costs for whatever you want to store in Baseledger. And then this is calculated in real time to a price on a price list that the client uses. And most of them still use US dollar or euro or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, this is one step closer to using it.
Okay. So you're saying it's going to be under the hood, and people are not really going to experience it firsthand. They'll be approving US dollars being spent on a transaction being logged onto the blockchain.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Again,
things with
this is the Unibright, Stefan, talking. I mean, this is our offering from our product stack that people do
yeah,
not have to care about current crypto prices. Of course, it's not mandatory in the baseline standard. You can
yeah,
also come up with another implementation that takes one, I don't know, ABC, crypto, whatever. But then
yeah,
this would not be my business. A baseline does not define how the commercial software that implements the protocol has to do its business model. This is our offering for the clients, so they don't have to care about crypto volatility, but just go ahead with a price schedule they can rely on.
right, right, absolutely. I think that's the point I wanted to drive home with this line of questioning. So thank you so much, Stephen. I think this has been a great discussion. I hope companies now start looking at this solution, and also this is a big moment for baseline community in general. And with you we have the baseline Stefan and the Unibright Stefan. I'm hoping that if Kyle was here, he would have been talking like that too, because he's been instrumental in both baseline as well as Baseledger going live. So last but not the least, I think what is important is that all of us, maybe we can talk about our own industries, and we can jam about where do we see this heading, where do we see this going, because especially Mark and I, there was one show where there was just me and Mark talking about TCO of blockchain projects, and how baseline can really make a difference. So, Mark, do you want to comment
No,
on that one?
it was actually, and this was, one of our main launch customer within Baseline, Kona, Coke One North America. Yeah, they had been working, within a certain blockchain solution that they were trying to get to work, and they were running into the same problems that so many development teams that are working in blockchain have had to stare in the face is scalability and covering that last mile. We just could not get it to scale into a true multi-party environment. And it's almost like you were trying to really rush the technology before it had a chance to fully bake. And and this is part of innovation. I mean, it's fail fast and fail forward. You know,
Yeah,
and but at the same time, you have a lot of people on the business side that are saying we've invested quite a bit into this, and we'd like to see a return on that. And so you have a lot of um, innovation department heads or CTOs or CIOs that will keep them awake at night. And you can say, hey, we have a technique, we have a methodology that we can actually allow you to salvage this and still maintain the original operating environments of the counterparties. And you know that they are in a proven state of consistency. So probably one of the most common aspects that I will commonly tell people about baseline is if you have a buyer and a seller, the seller wants to make sure that his invoice matches the buyer's bill. And so much operational cost and friction comes out of that trying to sync those two up, because a lot of times, they'll use one software package for generating the invoice that will then truncate to another software package that will actually issue the bill. And so you want to make sure that, and why those two haven't been merged, I don't know why, but again, it comes from an account receivable and account payable. So, I mean, I guess it's going to be two different sides there. But
I've even seen systems where people are using maybe a third or fourth system for printing.
yeah,
They've been these days.
exactly. And so, as far as industries that I think that really can benefit from this, and I say this all the time because I always talk about healthcare, especially the U.S.-based healthcare system, which 20 cents of every healthcare dollar is lost through friction, through fraud, through waste, and abuse. And the innovation within that industry is seriously, constrained because of the very strict, very draconian, really data privacy laws. You know, they're like, I want to be able to have the payer and the provider, the doctor and the insurance company, you know, sit there and at least, you know, have the, how can you pay for service? You know, ultimately, whenever you're adjudicating a claim, there's so much that happens before the procedure even happens. And then there's the mechanism for how do we pay for this procedure and document within the person's patient history that this procedure happened, any complications, any specific details. All of that, you know, cannot be released, you know, and it's being held within a system of record individually. But when it comes to having the counterparties and the other people involved within the claims process, having them all at least have their record keeping consistent will go such a tremendous distance in, you know, in really fixing this environment. And I think that with Baseline, we have a, you know, a particular advantage there, because it's, we're not asking you to, you know, replace anything. All we're doing is saying the existing environment, we're making it run better. We're saying these all match up, because the mechanisms that are in place right now really are, you know, it takes 60 to 90 days to properly adjudicate a claim. And because the first document that comes out, whether it's a bill from a provider or an explanation of benefits for a payer, you know, all of this has been disseminated. And there are these massive call centers where people will say, okay, well, this bill, it has a different coding taxonomy that we're used to. We say, this is incorrect, this is incorrect, this is incorrect. Correct these and send it back. And it's back and forth and forth and back until they're finally matched up. And to, you know, and that takes weeks or even months. You know, wouldn't it be glorious if you could turn it to minutes or even seconds? So it would disrupt some people that, you know, generally, you know, build and operate these large call centers, but
I think they need to pivot now, Mark. You know, we picked up that as well, I think. And you know, I would also come to Anushree. Anushree, last time when we had you talking about billing systems and telecom in general, we spoke about constant state of synchronization. I think that was the keyword on that day, and we really loved it. We sort of tweeted it and you know, made a whole run with that. So I think what is important is what Baseledger is doing differently is why people were refraining from synchronizing two systems via a public blockchain, because they did not know how much ETH or how much gas fee they will have to eventually spend in doing that. And there comes the layer 2 protocols to the rescue. What they do is they just bundle up transactions, and then it's like bundling up, and at the end of whatever period we decide, daily, weekly, hourly, they just post on the main net. So
Exactly.
it's like building an apartment on a small piece of land. It's just like that. That way the transaction costs go down. So now I just wanted to sort of break it down into very layman terms, because you know you come in today after a while, so I thought just catching you up what's happening. So what do you think? What's going to change in your world?
Yep. So I've been just listening to Stefan. So thank you for a great explanation, Stefan. People like me who are very literate to this can really understand as what you explain. In terms of telecommunication, what I can really relate to right now straight away is the security aspect and the simplistic, you know, lightweight architecture that Stefan just mentioned. That reduces a lot of overhead to the telecommunication systems. That is straight away head on, you can see that. But you know, there's also an address to the data sizing. One of the aspects we discussed that day before is the big data. The data sizing is getting huge. So the way Baseledger is simplifying the data sizing also, that is also a great aspect to the systems. Now comes the constant state of synchronization. Like in telecommunication systems, as we all know, like there are, for every service, there is a microservice. So every service is running independently and they have to be in sync always, all the time. So that was one question in my head when Stefan was explaining, and probably Mark addressed it a bit. And I was just thinking, like, most of the telecommunication system at the background, even the database, would not be on a same node. Every node is separate, and the request can hit to a gateway, and then the request further can be distributed across multiple nodes. So I was just thinking whether there's a kind of auto intelligent way of syncing across the nodes. Is that something that Baseledger addresses? It might be a layman question, sorry about that, but I was just thinking in my head whether does the system auto syncs across nodes, because that is one aspect where transactions can hit to any of the node, and it always works in a cluster, especially in the telecommunication domain, because the systems are huge.
Yeah, sure. So I would divide the answer into the pure, let's say, blockchain part. So of course, if we understand Baseledger as a blockchain, then of course all the nodes are synchronized, and the perfect, the sweet spot of how many validators in that network are needed to make it sufficiently secure, and at the same time providing the performance, is exactly one of the metrics that we will find out in the testnet operation. Although with Tendermint there have been a lot of tests, of course, already. And from a business perspective, I think what you are referring to is more the work group concept, to define off-chain which nodes, if you see that every customer would run a node where we can store Baseledger proofs, then to define how these different work groups interact with each other. I mean, if I'm in a big supply chain network, then I have hundreds or thousands of connections between a group with other groups, or single players with other single players. So I think there will be a lot of intelligence needed how these work groups are set up and how they interact with each other. So this is really vital, and I don't have the perfect answer to that yet. But in terms of the pure blockchain understanding, of course, the node synchronization is vital and is part of the underlying Tendermint protocol anyway.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's good to know. Probably there could be a roadmap related to that as we go along with this journey of Baseledger.
Yeah.
But
that's why the entire September is going to be Baseledger party, on this show. We're going to be talking about all updates as and when we keep getting from Stefan, from Kyle. Stefan,
okay.
I understand. We've kept you back a lot. You had to move your other meeting. Thank you so much for making it to today's show and talking to us about Baseledger. I think I'm going to wake you up at 3 a.m. someday and tell you that we have a big customer waiting to talk to you. So you can look forward to that.
Yeah, happily. Perhaps you can wait until 4 p.m., but that's good.
Okay. Sure. So I think with that, we can wrap up the show for today. Thank you so much, everybody who made it. Jack, I'm hoping that the community is super excited about the launch, and we see UBT going to the moon very soon.
No, they are very happy, and also with you, Samrat. So
I see.
So
okay.
a big fan base for you in our community, and I think they will rewatch this show 1,000 times maybe. So what should we say? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Oh yeah, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Please do that. And if Jack is right, and if I really have a fan following, please do hop in to the Baseline network. Start contributing in whatever way you can. We are also focusing a lot of energy these days on the go-to-market efforts. So it's not just about coding. It's not just about technology. We need people from all walks of life.
Yeah, for sure.
So if community members are really keen, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and we can have a chat how you can contribute.
Yeah, and
Thanks
trying
so much,
to start conversations with other people like this. You can also start with other people. Yeah, and tag other people also, so they can join also.
Absolutely. And I'm super reachable on Slack channel as well, on Baseline. So we can chat there as well. Well, with that, we wrap up today's show. Thank you so much, everybody, for making it. We do this every week at 6 p.m. India time every Saturday. Do tune in next time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Samrat.